Well, we had to do something different than we did last time, and you know, and for 4 albums it had been predominantly a live thing, and it had to change. And I built a digital studio upstairs in my house, and so that was where we started to do the writing. And Toby came up, and we wrote Little Al, and
Feels So Good.
Feels So Good, and we got this kind of, you know, no, they already had this kind of programmed drum feel to them. So from there it took off, and you know, I mean, we didn't let it get out of control, because otherwise I think you'd just be doing what everybody else does.
Yeah.
But
Sleeping around.
Yeah, but you know, but it was there was loads of headroom to have some fun and do something a bit different, and the result was pleasing.
Yeah. And how should I imagine work in the studio? Is it sort of more jamming around all together, or is it somebody comes up with something nearly finished, or?
Well, it's a bit more. I think it's more of a two. It's a two, you know, maximum 3-person thing, and then it kind of, and then everybody else joins in from there, really.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it's detrimental to have like 6 or 7 of you all in the same room. It can, yeah. I mean, you know, at the end of the day, when you're in the early stage of an album, you know, from my point of view, I've got to think, hold on, I've got to sing on this.
Yeah.
That's what my main point is. I've got to sing. It can be a great piece of music, but if I can't sing on it, if I can't find a melody to it, or it's just, you know, then that's not easy. So.
Because you have to remember that, you know, Jay's got a tour with it, and we have to play it, so it has to be right.
We've got to do it live, you know, that's the thing. It's all very well us getting into some mega electronic extraordinaire, but I mean, it's still got to be done live. You've still got to allow for, like, Nick to play the bass on it, you know, for
extra hi-hats, or
Rob to play the guitar, etc., etc.
But is it sort of, when you're writing stuff, are you writing permanently all the time, sort of collecting little ideas, or is it shortly before the recording sessions in the studio that everybody sort of starts thinking it, or is it all the time?
It depends on
we usually start getting, there's ideas already starting from the album before. There's a few ideas that sometimes we'll take through, and on the case of certainly the first 3 albums, we actually just went straight into a main studio and started writing in the main studio, putting the stuff down to 2-inch, with very little pre-production. You know, whereas on this album we actually managed to get about 6 months where we'd sit in a little room playing with the computer, which, you know, playing with ideas and getting different sounds and stuff like that. And
I mean, that's the good thing about having the computer there is that some of the stuff you put into it, if you were doing it live, might not be a particularly good take, you know, but you can take the very best of it and then change the sound on it a little bit, and then it's actually what we call a keeper, you know.
Yeah.
You know, that's something to keep. So you'll say, right, keeper. And
it's a double-edged sword, though, isn't it, the computer? Because in some respects it's easier, because, like Jay says, you can do great takes, huge 5-minute takes of guitar and take bits of it, but at the same time, some of our best tunes have been written in 2 minutes around the piano and recorded in 5 minutes with the drums there, you know, like All Right and Virtual, and so you can get bogged down. Yeah, you can get bogged down.
Spontaneity is always a good thing.
But then again, what sound you get out of changing it in the computer can therefore, you know, sprout more ideas from that.
Yeah.
You know? And, you know, when you hear something that you're used to hearing just normally, and then you hear it differently, it's like kind of, it gives you another idea. And I mean, you know, I think it was just a question in, you know, to make one good, exciting thing happen in every tune, you know, and I mean, my idea is always to make sure that we don't have these 2 tracks that sit and just sound exactly the same together. So you've got to put these different elements in. If one has strings and the other one, you know, we did have 2 tracks that were kind of similar-ish.
Yeah.
So, you know, one would have an affected vocal, one had a dry vocal, one's got strings, one hasn't, one's got this. So you've got to make sure you always keep them separate all the time. Right. And then by the time you get to the end of it, then they sound different.
It sounds very much like mathematics, really, doesn't it? Sort of when you're doing it with the computer, it's sort of, oh, God, mind-blowing. Help. There are 2 really beautiful, I would say, bossa nova tracks also on the album. One is called Corner of the Earth.
The Picture of My Life.
Yeah, exactly. And could you tell me something about Corner of the Earth?
God, they're popular tracks, aren't they? I don't think I've done about 55 interviews on this project alone, and every single interview I've ever done people have come up and said those two tracks.
Do you hate people coming up with it?
No, I really like it, because I think they're great tracks too.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I mean, it just, really and truly, that's just a continuation of what went on the first, second and third albums. There was a Latin feel, you know, on some tracks on there, and it's just something that I do feel comfortable with. I feel comfortable, you know, it's the easiest place for me to melodically get to is a Latin type track. It's by far the easiest way, and it required a different singing style, and you know, and lyrically it's very beautiful. You know, it's very, very, very to the point and very sweet and beautiful, and it's a nice juxtaposition from the hard stuff. You know, it's a good it's a good gap between the two of them, and you got to remember about your Jamiroquai fans who want to hear that kind of stuff as well. No, not everybody wants to hear. You know, we may want to go forward, but they want to. You know, they may want to stick with some of the other stuff. And bearing in mind, you know, the people who buy records range from kids to people who are 50, 60 years old. So it would be unfair to kind of just assault them with an electronic knife, with Toby's palace of electronic hell sounds, you know, before we actually gave them, you know, something nice to listen to, and you know, it was a melody that had been hanging around for a long, long time, and well, it was actually a different melody, and the melody changed, and it sat there perfectly, and what makes it different is, of course, you got this. We did a track called Cannibalist, and at the start we had a very kind of Indian kind of feel at the front of it. And then that became orchestrated properly, and so you had this great, you know, orchestrated thing going on with the strings that have been recorded in a great big proper room, you know, big 32-piece orchestra, and then you went into this just guitar and Shaker and me, and for once on both tracks we left drums out, which was something that, you know, we'd done gentle sort of tracks before, we never left the drums out, and you just got to learn what to leave out and what to keep, and that's, to me, that's what makes it so lovely. It's just a shaker and a couple of percussive things, guitar, and that's it.
Yeah, and so we'll watch the new video, Little L, and then we'll be back with Jamiroquai in a few seconds. Meine Damen und Herren, Sie sehen Fast Forward, und das hier sind Jamiroquai hier im Schloss Bensberg. And now we have to talk about another bossa nova song called Picture of My Life, which I think is very honest and very vulnerable, the song. In which situation was that written?
Well, it's... Well, I woke up one day and we were in the studio, and I decided that I was having trouble, to be honest. I mean, you know, lyrics are not easy things to come by. They don't grow on trees. Yeah. And sometimes you can skirt around the houses, you know, and never quite get to the point. And I wanted to get to the point, and I was a bit annoyed with myself, you know, and it was a bit, you know, it was just a bad day, you know, and I decided, right, I'm going to sit down, I'm just going to write this song, how I feel about myself. And that was it, really, and that was how it came about, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, but, you know, I've had, it's just really about, you know, everybody's different, and sometimes I kind of try to spoil things for myself in a way sometimes, and I never quite seem to get where I want to go, and I never quite make it to fulfill myself properly sometimes, and that was what the tune is about, you know. I've had problems with drugs and things like that, and you know, you write about it, then you get it out of your system.
But is it when you've written a song like that, do you sort of look at it afterwards and think, oh, maybe this is too honest or too confessional for the nasty world out there?
Well, no, because I've had my share of the nasty world, you see, so I know how nasty they are, so it's no big surprise to me anymore.
Yeah.
And also, the other thing is, when you're not bothered about the nasty world anymore, you're much more willing to put yourself over like that. You're much more, you know, you're much easier about just going, well, you know, who cares? I mean, that's what songs are about. You know, I'd much rather people talk to me about the lyrics of the song than just made up some rubbish in the newspaper and then you read it like that. You know, I'd much rather give it away myself as opposed to having it just ripped out of you.
Yeah. And What I always thought was that Jamiroquai was a very exceptional band in Britain, is sort of in comparison with other bands, because obviously it's sort of based the influence on black music instead of other bands sort of being based their influence on Beatles or whatever. Right. Could you ever relate to those Beatle-influenced bands?
Yeah.
Do you like them?
No, because a good song is a good song. You know, Travis write great, some good songs. Coldplay, I love a lot of their songs. Good song is a good song, and I think our influences are broader than just black as well. There's quite a lot of other influences as well, like Latin and classical influences as well. So I think we're a bit, you know, we're slightly broader and rock, you know.
I'm a bit Metallica and all that.
Bit of an AC/DC sucker for AC/DC. Bit of a sucker.
You know, 2001 is not a black track, or it's more of a rock track, you know.
See that bloke there?
Yeah.
We must get him to...
Hello! Okay, back to the British music scene. Have you heard the new Stereo MC's album?
No.
No, not yet.
Actually, no.
You have to listen to it. Now I can't ask you what you think of
I
it.
like the single.
I went to see them a month or so ago, the Astoria.